Well, hi everybody. Today is day 4 of my therapy comeback. It is Wednesday, hump day. Very excited about this. One of the things that happened yesterday is they met, all the administrative team met and looked at all of my progress charts to determine what is going to happen to me by the end of the week. And what they determined was I get to go home. I'm very excited about that. Get to go home and see my kitty and be around my things and my workout tools, because I have a very regimented life. I won't be able to do everything, but at least it'll be nice to be in my own environment. And I don't know about a continuing therapy. There were 2 options, and I haven't heard yet if they're going to come into my house and show me more therapy as I'm there, or if I go to an external therapy session, or if I don't need it at all. I've got a list that they're making for me. I think that's very important because it's hard to remember everything. And so they're making a list of both the ST, the OT, and the PT. Remember, ST is speech therapy. And I got to tell you some of the fun activities that we did for the speech therapy. I thought it was fun. One of the things she did was because remember, she's not just speech, but cognition. How much is my brain working? Notice how this hand isn't working quite the same. But how much is my brain working when I'm thinking? So she gave me a word, and I had to come up with 3 synonyms. In other words, 3 words that are similar to the one that she gave me. For example, the last one she gave me was chill. And it's funny because I had just posted on Facebook, a friend of mine had a cat who was laying there, and I said, looks like he's chilling. So chill could be just relaxing. So I said relaxing. Chill is relaxing. But it's also to ice something down or to freeze it. And so it had different connotations, and that was okay. She didn't care which ones they were, as long as there were 3. But she also gave me half a sheet that didn't have any, so I can continue working on that to try to come up with these words. Some of them were harder than others. But one that was really interesting, that I've never done anything like this before, was she had first started with 4-word sentences, like the dog ran outside. The dog ran outside. And then what I had to do was say it backwards, starting with the last word, outside, ran, dog, the. Well, that started getting easy, so and I was using my fingers. It helped me to see the words if I used my fingers. So she bumped it up to 5 words. And at first, I was using the fingers to help, and she said, okay, you can't use your fingers. So mentally, I made an image of what the sentence looked like. For example, the doctor said, go home. Okay, that's 5. I noticed that almost every sentence of 5 words, the middle one, the 3rd word, was the verb. So all I had to really remember was the verb and then 2 little ones on either side. So it made it a lot easier. So if the doctor said go home, then it was home go said, doctor the. And so it made it easier for me. And not that I was cheating, but the fact is I was using different parts of my brain to be able to do that. And that's the way I've always been in school. For example, math, not my thing at all. Especially when they came to explaining fractions, and it was all very left brain, and I'm not left brain, I'm right brained. So it was hard for me to understand it. But when I figured it out in my way, then I could do it. I had my own little workaround, and I could see, well, if you did this and this and this, then it would equal that, and it works. So I would use my own little formula, which is funny because later in life I was a teacher, a substitute teacher. I didn't teach small children all the time. Mostly I taught adults, but for a while I was a substitute teacher, and I had to teach math. And I remembered when I was teaching the math that, oh, this was the thing I couldn't get when I was in school, but I remembered how I had done it. So I said, if anybody doesn't understand what I just said, that's okay. I want you to come and sit at this table, and I'll explain it a different way. And half a dozen kids came and sat at that table. They were all right-brained, and I explained it the way I had figured it out. And they said, great, got it, and they learned it. And so I think that's really important, to be able to use both sides of your brain, especially if you're a teacher. You need to be able to teach to people who are different. But the good news is it means that you use more of your brain, so that if one side is kind of wonky, like mine is right now, I can still do some of those same tasks with my other side of the brain. So it's a really good idea to figure out how to use the other side of the brain. I did find my putty, my therapy putty. It had rolled under the bed, and I found it. Nobody took it. So I just want to show you real quick some of the things that I've been doing with it. It's super cold. So because it's cold, it's a little on the hard side. But one of the things that I'm doing is pinching it around the edges. And it's hard, it's not easy to do, but this is helping with my typing so that I have more feeling and mobility when I want to go back and type. This is part of my occupational therapy. So that's one of the things I'm doing with the putty. Another toy that I have is this brain that they gave me, and it actually, I don't think you can see it, but it has letters on it and words, and the first letter is F. It stands for FAST, F-A-S-T. The first letter is F for face drooping. This is a symptom of having a stroke. So if you see somebody whose face is drooping, or A is, let me see if I can read it, arm weakness. I had that, the arm, it was actually numb. It didn't feel weak, it just felt numb. So, and then S is speech. If your face becomes a little flurred, because like you've had Novocaine and you haven't. And then T is time to call 911. So it's good to know that in case you or somebody you know might be showing some sort of signs of a stroke. And remember, the drooping, it wasn't really obvious, but I could feel the numbness. So it may be just a little bit different. And same way with the weakness in the arm was just numbness in my arm too. So things to think about. It could also be a heart attack. Either way, you want to get to the hospital, call 911. I have one more little toy, and that is just a general, brand new tennis ball. And what I'm doing with that, besides the brain being a good memory device, it's also a squeeze ball. And it helps me with not just strength, because my hand is very strong. In fact, it was hard for me not to hurt people when they asked for a strength test. They would give me 2 fingers and I would grab it, and the fact is that I couldn't tell how hard I was squeezing and I could really hurt them. Oops, don't want to do that. But this, besides making your hand stronger, if that's what you need, is to feel. As long as I can feel something, it helps wake up those nerves. So one of the things they asked me to do is to feel as many things as possible, as many different kinds of textures as possible. One of the main things is to sit in a chair with arms, hold the arms, and then push up slightly. And when I do that, it's reminding my brain that this hand goes with this part of the brain, and this is what I'm doing with it. And just touching anything that feels different. This is some lotion or an emery board, and to feel that. In fact, yesterday when I was going down for some occupational therapy, excuse me, the first thing she did, she had a box of brushes, all kinds of brushes, but she pulled one out that looked kind of like a nail brush and just went over my whole hand with it, which felt very strange. Now this hand, when I feel something with this hand, for example, I'm touching my shorts, with my normal hand it feels like brushed cotton, smooth and very kind of silky. But with this hand it feels like it's sandpaper. It's a completely different feeling. So I do have feeling, but it's very awkward and it doesn't feel like what I'm used to. So it's harder to control as a result. So the brush was to open up all my sensations and sensors and help wake it up. And they suggested that I do the same thing with my arm. I don't know about the brush. I may be using something else. For example, this is my COVID mask, and I can just rub over it so it has a very different sensation. It also feels like sandpaper, by the way. So when I lean on it, it's very uncomfortable because it feels like I'm leaning on sandpaper. And it feels different on the back of my arm than it does on the front of my arm. So it's different, and it completely feels different from this side. This side, it feels like what it is, and that is poly fabric, you know, whatever they call that. No, I don't think it's polyurethane because that's plastic, but it's some kind of a polymer fabric. All right, some other things that I did down in the training center was they had boxes. One of them was full of popcorn. And it wasn't popped, so I didn't get to eat it. It was unpopped popcorn, just the kernels. And in it were all these little objects. You could barely see them. I said, oh, it looks like a treasure box. She said, it is a treasure box. What they wanted me to do, and the treasures were things like marbles and bolts and, just little things that were hard. And I was supposed to close my eyes, put my hand in, and pull out treasures. But because I have no feeling with this hand, I couldn't tell the difference between the corn and the treasures. I couldn't feel the difference between the smooth and the small surfaces. So they changed it a little bit and just asked me to pull it out using my eyes. And then I had to knock all the corn off it before I could put it in the lid. So I was able to pull all those out. Then the next one was rice. And it was a completely different sensation on my hand. It didn't feel like rice, but it felt different than the corn did. And there were even smaller items inside of it. Again, I couldn't feel the difference enough to do it with my eyes closed, so I did it with my eyes open. And they were really small things. I do have some rice at home, so I'm going to make my own little treasure. And I know I have some marbles. I had those for my grandchildren. And I have a few other little small things that I can throw in there, little washers and bolts and things like that. Nothing sharp, no pins, no knives, nothing like that, because you're digging through and you don't know what it is. But it feels good to be able to manipulate those little things, because that was my goal when I came in. They said, what do you need? And I knew that I had the gross motor skills. Gross meaning I knew I could walk. I knew I could use my arms and actually maybe even carry something. Like now I can hold the ball in my hand and not drop it. When I first came in, I couldn't. My hand would forget that I was holding it and I would just lose it. But now, without having to constantly think about it, I'm able to hold on to something. I would not hold, for example, this bottle of water. I would not hold that for a long time. I wouldn't trust it because I don't want to clean up the mess. But having a ball or a little tub of putty go under the bed isn't such a disaster. Today, I was doing more gross motor skills because my walking is a little wonky. And I may try to get somebody to videotape me so you can see some of the things that I'm talking about. It's not pretty still, it really isn't. But I feel more confident. I have a cane. I call it a stick because cane sounds like an old-fashioned thing. And I just want a stick to help balance me. I don't need it for walking, but every once in a while I feel like my hip isn't going to hold and I don't want to fall, so I use it for that. Plus, it's fun to do a little dance routine while you're waiting for the elevator. I've been doing a lot of putting on the Ritz. Putting on the Ritz. That was from a movie that I really like called Young Frankenstein. I mean, there was also one from Fred Astaire doing it, but I love the Young Frankenstein one with the monster because I feel like the monster. I'm so not smooth, and when I walk like Frankenstein. I like the Frankenstein monster. So I'm trying to walk. Today, my job was to walk heel to toe and to rock. And just to go back and forth, heel to toe, and just keep rocking it. So I had that smoothness when I walk fast. If I practice it slow, I have muscle memory. That's the word that they're using. Muscle memory, so it'll remember this is the way I should be walking. Heel to toe, nice and smooth, instead of I was kind of clunking like Frankenstein. Well, I don't have a lot more to report except that today, being Wednesday, yesterday was Tuesday, and one of the things they do, on Monday, they write all their evaluations. On Tuesday, the doctors present the evaluations to the board, and they decide whether you go home or whether you stay for another week. And they decided I get to go home. Yay! I think I might have mentioned that, but I'm kind of excited about it. But I'm also I've got a little trepidation because I won't be able to drive. I don't feel comfortable driving. I don't think it would be fair for me to drive. And I don't think that I'm even allowed to. I got one of the papers. They had a stack of papers in the therapy room, and I started grabbing them because they were very useful. This is the papers that they've been saving for me. These are called my discharge papers. I don't know if you can read that, but that's what it says on the front. In dark pen on a very dark color. And these are some of that's my synonyms that I can be working on. But these I thought they were very useful. And I don't want to read all the information on them. Sorry for the paper rustling. But for example, this one is called Recovery After Stroke, Ability to Go Places. And it has tips for safe driving and to find a, what's it called? Association of Driver Educators for the Disabled. Right now I'm disabled, so I want to make sure that I can pass the test. I want to because I don't want to drive if I'm not safe. I do not want to cause an accident. I don't want to be in an accident, and you don't want to be on the road with me if I'm not safe, right? So, but I do live in a big environment, big community that's private. The roads are private, so I know I can practice and practice safely, but not yet. I'm not there yet. So right now it's either Uber or delivery of all my food. There's also some information on sleep disorders because I have found it's hard to sleep right now, but it might be because there's so much light in this room. There's windows going out into the hallway with shades that aren't, they're not blackout. And in my house, in my room, I have blackout curtains on everything. I need it to be really dark when I sleep. So I may not have a sleep disorder, I just may have too much light. So we're going to try moving a curtain around so that I have less light at night. And here's another one on recovery after stroke, recurrent stroke. This is not fun statistics, but it says the percentage of recurrent after your first stroke. In other words, what are the odds that you're going to get another stroke? Because I've had one. Just like because I had cancer, I had a better chance of getting cancer again. Well, after 30 days, I have a 3 to 10% chance. After 30 days. Do you see why I'm taking meds now that I wouldn't have taken before? After 1 year, I have a 5 to 14%. And after 5 years, 25 to 40%. I want those all to be zero. So I'm going to do everything I can to not have another stroke. I don't want it. Here's some stroke risk factors you can't change. See, now these are things that I thought I could change with lifestyle. For example, being over the age of 55. Being a man. Now I'm a woman, so I shouldn't have had such a high risk. Being African American. I'm not African American yet. I still had a high risk. Someone in your family has had a stroke, my mother. So that raised my chances. And having diabetes, which I don't have. In fact, when they did my A1C, which is blood sugar, they said that's one thing I don't have to worry about because it's perfect, which is really good. No matter what you're doing or how you're recovering, it's really important to know if you're ready. If you're ready to do something, like I would love to be able to drive. I'm an independent person. But if I can't, I will get ready because I don't want to endanger anyone else either. So I'm very excited about my recovery and things are going well, and I've been interrupted several times already for more different kinds of therapy. I just did one where I had to take little bitty pegs and put them in a diagram, and it's not easy, but that's okay. It's kind of fun, and one day it will be easy again. So that's my hope. And I hope your recovery is going well too, if that's the case. Bye.